May 8th, 1945, 14:30 hours. POW Camp 186, Lancashire, England. Obergefreiter Klaus Becker stands at attention in a borrowed British uniform, his Wehrmacht insignia removed 3 days prior. The Iron Cross, still pinned to his chest, feels like a death sentence. Around him, 43 other German snipers wait in formation, each man calculating the same terrible arithmetic. They've killed collectively over 2,000 Allied soldiers. The Geneva Convention protects regular infantry, but snipers occupy a different category in the moral universe of war.
Personal. Deliberate. 1 bullet, 1 man, 1 widow. The camp commandant, Brigadier General James Hargest, walks down the line. He stops at each sniper, examines their decorations. Becker's hands shake. Not from fear, he exhausted that currency months ago in the Ardennes, but from the cognitive dissonance of what's happening. There are no gallows being constructed, no firing squad assembled at dawn, just a British general studying medals with the careful attention of a museum curator. "This one," Hargest says, touching Becker's Iron Cross. "Explain it." Becker's English is functional, learned from 3 months of captivity. "Stalingrad, sir. January 1943. 47 confirmed kills in 19 days. Hargest nods, says nothing, moves to the next man. By May 1945, the mathematics of sniper warfare had been calculated down to the last decimal point. One sniper could suppress an entire company, could kill officers, medics, radio operators, the men whose deaths multiplied chaos exponentially. Soviet records showed that during the Battle of Stalingrad, individual German snipers averaged between 40 and 300 kills each. The top Soviet counter-snipers matched those numbers. On the Western Front, the calculus was similar, if less extreme. A competent sniper, operating from a concealed position, could achieve what an artillery barrage might accomplish with 50 shells. Allied infantry hated snipers with a purity that transcended ordinary combat animosity. Getting shot by machine gun fire was random, impersonal, the lottery of war. Getting shot by a sniper was personal. Someone had watched you through glass optics, had controlled their breathing, had squeezed the trigger with your specific face in their sight picture. British and American field manuals from 1944 contained unofficial addendums, passed from company to company. Snipers captured in combat are to be treated as prisoners of war per Geneva Convention protocols, the official language. But, penciled in margins, scrawled on the backs of pages, "Don't take them alive." Many didn't. The stories filtered through POW camps like cigarette smoke through barbed wire. A German sniper captured near Caen in June 1944, found with 63 notches carved into his rifle stock, was shot attempting to escape. Another, taken near Arnhem, fell down a flight of stairs. The official reports always maintained technical compliance with international law. The unofficial reality was different. So when 44 German snipers were consolidated at Camp 186 in late April 1945, every man knew the historical precedent. They'd been separated from regular Wehrmacht POWs, isolated in their own barracks. The British claimed administrative efficiency. The snipers knew better. You don't consolidate the condemned unless you're planning something specific. James Hargest didn't fit conventional military archetypes. A New Zealander by birth, decorated veteran of World War I, he'd spent 23 months as a POW himself after being captured at Crete in 1941. Escaped twice, succeeded the second time, walking 600 miles through occupied Europe to rejoin Allied forces. His philosophy on prisoner treatment emerged from that experience. Not sentimentality. Hargest had personally killed dozens of German soldiers and would do so again without hesitation if combat resumed. But he'd been a prisoner, had felt the particular helplessness of captivity, where your existence depended entirely on your captor's interpretation of civilization.
When he assumed command of Camp 186 in March 1945, his first directive surprised his staff. These men are defeated soldiers, not criminals. Maintain order through discipline rather than degradation. The British officers under his command weren't unanimous in support. Major Peter Thornton, the camp's security officer, argued for separate tribunals for the snipers. They're assassins, sir, different from regular infantry. Hargest's response entered camp legend. They wore uniforms, followed military orders, engaged armed combatants. That makes them soldiers. Jerry or not, they're soldiers. We will treat them accordingly. Akie meant something specific in Hargest's framework. Regular meals, not generous, but sufficient. Medical treatment without discrimination. Work details proportionate to Geneva Convention standards. And, critically, no summary punishment for actions committed during legal military operations. The sniper question tested this philosophy to its limits. That afternoon in May, Hargest wasn't conducting a standard inspection. He was making calculations of his own. The war in Europe had ended 48 hours earlier. VE Day celebrations in London were still generating hangovers across England. But Camp 186 existed in temporal suspension. The snipers weren't going home. Germany was rubble and occupation zones. Most of these men wouldn't see their families for years, if ever. And they were decorated soldiers. Becker's Iron Cross represented authentic military valor by any objective standard. Surviving Stalingrad required more than skill. It required a kind of terrible competence that transcended politics. The man next to Becker, Hauptmann Ernst Weber, wore the Knight's Cross, Germany's second highest military decoration. He'd earned it commanding a sniper platoon in Normandy, where his unit had held a crucial crossroads for 6 days against overwhelming Allied forces. Hargest understood something that many of his contemporaries missed. Decorations weren't endorsements of Nazi ideology. They were recognition of military performance within the structure of war. A British soldier who fought bravely against Germans earned medals. A German soldier who fought bravely against British forces earned their equivalent. The politics of why they fought was separate from the question of how they fought. This distinction mattered legally. The Geneva Convention protected soldiers engaged in lawful combat operations. Sniping from a concealed position, wearing a uniform, engaging military targets, all lawful under international law. The emotional reality that soldiers hated being killed by snipers didn't create a legal exception. But Hargest's thinking went beyond legal compliance. He was considering something unprecedented. No Allied commander had publicly honored German military decorations while those soldiers were POWs. The symbolism was explosive. Britain had just fought a 6-year war against Nazi Germany. Cities had been bombed, families destroyed. The Holocaust was being revealed in all its mechanized horror. And here was a British general considering what, exactly? His staff meeting that evening became contentious. "Sir, the optics are impossible," Major Thornton argued. "These men killed our soldiers. You're proposing we honor them for it." Hargest's response was measured. "I'm proposing we acknowledge that they were soldiers doing what soldiers do. We don't have to like it, but we do have to maintain the distinction between legal military action and war crimes. If we blur that line, we forfeit the moral high ground that supposedly justified this entire war." Captain Robert Mills, the camp's chaplain, offered unexpected support. The general's right. These men expected execution. Many probably wanted it after seeing what their country became. Treating them as soldiers rather than criminals, acknowledging their service, even while condemning their cause, that's a more profound victory than any hangman's rope could provide. The logic was paradoxical but sound. Executing snipers for lawful military actions would validate the Nazi argument that international law was merely Allied hypocrisy. Treating them according to military conventions, even honoring their decorations while maintaining they fought for an evil cause, demonstrated that civilization could survive war. Hargest made his decision. The ceremony would proceed. May 10th, 1945, 0900 hours. The central parade ground at Camp 186. The 44 snipers stand in formation. British guards at parade rest around the perimeter. Camp personnel assembled as witnesses. And Brigadier General James Hargest, in full dress uniform, carries a small wooden case. No one has explained what's happening. The snipers maintain rigid attention, discipline overriding confusion. Hargest addresses them in German, translated by a young lieutenant. You are defeated soldiers of a defeated nation that pursued a criminal ideology. That fact is not in dispute. But you conducted yourselves as military professionals within the laws of war, and your decorations represent authentic military achievement. Today, we acknowledge that distinction. He opens the case. Inside, each German decoration has been cleaned, polished, and mounted on fresh ribbon. The Iron Crosses, the Knight's Cross, the various campaign medals, all maintained in pristine condition despite months of captivity. Hargest walks down the line again. This time, he removes each man's decoration from their borrowed British tunics and replaces it with the restored version from his case. A formal pinning, executed with the precision of any military honours ceremony. Klaus Becker feels the weight of his Iron Cross being removed, then the new one being attached. Hargest meets his eyes, says in careful German, "You earned this in hell. Whatever comes next, that doesn't change." The ceremony takes 40 minutes. No speeches beyond Hargest's opening statement, no fanfare. Just a British general methodically honouring the military achievements of men who'd killed his countrymen, because the alternative was abandoning the principles that supposedly differentiated civilized warfare from barbarism. Bow. When it ends, Hargest salutes. The snipers return the salute. Then he turns and walks away, leaving 44 men standing in stunned silence, decorated enemies acknowledged as soldiers rather than criminals condemned as murderers. News of the ceremony leaked within days. British newspapers treated it as either profound moral courage or borderline treason, depending on political alignment. The Times published an editorial praising Hargest's recognition that military professionalism exists independent of political ideology. The Daily Mail ran a counter-editorial suggesting he'd dishonoured every British soldier killed by German bullets. Hargest never publicly defended his decision. When pressed by military superiors, he simply noted that he'd followed Geneva Convention protocols and maintained morale in his camp without incident. The decorated snipers caused zero disciplinary problems in subsequent months. Many became trustees, helping manage camp operations. Klaus Becker returned to Germany in 1947, to a country that no longer existed in the form he'd defended. His Iron Cross stayed in a drawer for decades. But he kept the letter Hargest had included with the restored decoration. You fought as a soldier. You are treated as a soldier. The cause you served was evil. The manner in which you served was not. Remember the difference. Ernst Weber, the Knight's Cross recipient, became a teacher in post-war Bavaria. He died in 1983, and his obituary mentioned both his military decorations and his time as a POW under Hargest's command. His family noted he considered those months in British captivity as the moment he began understanding the difference between tactical excellence and moral legitimacy. Hargest himself rarely discussed the ceremony in later years. What Hargest understood, and what made his decision remarkable, was the necessity of maintaining categorical distinctions even when emotions demanded. Simplification. German snipers were not SS concentration camp guards. They were not Gestapo interrogators. They were soldiers who'd become exceptionally skilled at the soldier's fundamental task, killing enemy combatants. Hating them was natural. Executing them would have been emotionally satisfying. But it would have also validated every Nazi propaganda claim about Allied barbarism. It would have confirmed that international law only protected the victorious. It would have reduced World War II from a moral crusade against totalitarian evil to just another imperial conflict where the strongest imposed their will. By pinning those medals back onto enemy uniforms, Hargest made an argument more powerful than any Nuremberg prosecution. Civilization survives war only when we maintain principles even toward those who violated them. The snipers had fought within military law for an illegal regime. Acknowledging the former while condemning the latter wasn't moral relativism, it was moral precision. 44 German snipers walked into that ceremony expecting execution or humiliation. They received neither. Instead, they received something more transformative, the recognition that they could be simultaneously defeated enemies and professional soldiers, that their skills could be honored even while their cause was condemned, that losing a war didn't erase their humanity or reduce their service to simple criminality. Whether Hargest intended it or not, he'd conducted an experiment in post-war reconstruction, not the political kind, involving borders and governments, but the psychological kind, involving how defeated soldiers might reintegrate into civilized society. You can't rebuild a nation from men who believe their entire military service was criminal, but you can rebuild from men who understand they fought bravely for a cause that deserved to lose. The rope would have been simpler, the medals were infinitely more complex, and in that complexity lay a kind of wisdom that transcended the immediate satisfaction of vengeance. 44 snipers, thousands of Allied dead, one British general's decision that honor and enmity could coexist. The mathematics of hatred transformed, briefly, into the more difficult arithmetic of civilization.